Many of us probably know that this is the usual way to start a fresh slate when you're fed up with the basic program you've been working on and realize it won't amount to anything much. The new command is great for when you want to deliberately flush your last work session out of memory, but what if there was another command intended for something completely different that, if deployed at the wrong moment, could accidentally have the exact same effect, wiping out your coding masterpiece in a second without asking if you are sure? Well, there is. Computers in the 80s never needed to be told twice. They assumed you knew what you were doing. This was great for those who always did, but a bit of a hair-raiser for the mere mortals. It's nearly dinner time. You've been coding all afternoon, and you think about saving your masterpiece to device 8, probably your trusty old 1541 drive. But first, you'd better run a quick check of what's on the unlabeled disk you shoved in there earlier. The disk's directory listing displays fine, but that's when it hits you in the face. List is the same command you use to view your work in progress, and now all it produces is that directory listing. No matter how many times you try, your program's vanished. Every line, your entire afternoon's work, wiped. This is not a bug. It's just how a vanilla stock Commodore 64 works. Some might argue that it should be considered a bug. A very warm welcome to Rottie, the retro tech nostalgia community channel that's all about the Wii, not just me. So why does loading a directory listing lose your program? The answer is both simple and slightly upsetting. On the C64, while BASIC, the language itself, lives safely cocooned in its own ROM chip, a BASIC program you begin to write lives in RAM, starting at hexadecimal address 0801 if you're curious. When you type the load $8 command, the computer asks the 1541 drive for the disk directory, and the drive returns what was requested, and the C64 loads it into RAM, starting at the same address your BASIC program was using. This means that even if the directory listing is very short and your BASIC program very long, the vital chain of links between each line of your program has been fatally broken. In technical terms, depending on the lengths involved, the vast majority of the bytes of your program may still be physically present in RAM, but as the remaining lines are now unlinked or orphaned, the BASIC interpreter can no longer see them. It appears that your entire program has been totally overwritten with the directory listing. The C64 has no idea you didn't want that to happen. You issued a load command. Like a good sheepdog, it did exactly what you said. Job done. Here's where it gets interesting. This wasn't an unsolved problem in 1982. Commodore had already fixed it years earlier. It's just that they then unfixed it. As we will come to, they later refixed it, but not in nearly such a convenient way as they had fixed it first time around. Let me explain. Some models in Commodore's ancient but respected PET product line, which had BASIC 4.0 from circa 1980 onwards, included a directory command, a safe, dedicated way to list disk contents without touching your program in RAM. So far, so good. But 1982's Commodore 64 shipped with BASIC V2, an older stripped-back version with no user-friendly disk commands. The result, a greatly loved computer that outsold all others, with a disk workflow that could silently lose your work if you suffered a momentary lapse of concentration. Yes, we're talking about pilot error, so it's largely the user's fault, but is it not perhaps Commodore's fault too, just a tiny bit? So what was the fudge fix in the early days of the C64 and the 1541 drive? Every 1541 drive came boxed with a floppy disk, the test and demo disk. This contained a small piece of machine code, around 1 kilobyte, accessible via a very short basic loader program anyone could run. It was written by Bob Fairbairn and designed by Bill Seiler, a Commodore engineer who also contributed to the VIC-20 computer. It was, for its time, an elegant piece of work. You'd load it at the start of your session, and from that point, when you wanted to inspect the contents of a disk, instead of the dreaded program-devouring commands we discussed earlier, you could just type a very snappy shortcut, just 2 characters, known as a wedge command. The disk contents would be listed safely, cleanly, without touching a single byte of your basic program. Magic! The wedge came with a whole family of similar shorthand commands for loading, saving, checking drive status, and more. Jim Butterfield documented them all in Compute magazine in October 1983, just a year after the 1541 launched. If you want to dig deeper, this was genuinely useful, but don't do the funky monkey dance on the roof just yet. The remaining problem was you had to manually load it into memory every single time, every session, every reboot. Find the demo disk, type a load command perfectly, then run again, and only then could you start work. Whether many users remembered this step every time, or could be bothered after a while, is debatable. This brings us to the belated solution that actually found long-term traction with dedicated C64 programmers. JiffyDOS, developed from 1985 onwards by Mark Fellows and published by Creative Microdesigns, took a different approach entirely. Instead of a program you loaded from a floppy, JiffyDOS was a complete replacement for the firmware inside both the C64 and the external disk drive. The results were dramatic. A stock 1541 loading a sizable program could take over 2 minutes. JiffyDOS cut that to around 12 seconds, an up to 10 times improvement, by completely rewriting the way the C64 and the drive communicate over the serial bus. and it included a full Wedge command set permanently available from the moment you switched on, every time. No laborious loading ritual at a snail's pace, no hunting for the demo disc, just type $@ whenever you needed to list files. For those using Commodore 64 hardware in the 1980s and 90s, JiffyDOS meant physically replacing ROM chips in both the C64 and the disk drive, a significant commitment that likely voided the warranty and cost a meaningful amount of money. Not something the average home users would rush into, although extremely popular among those using their machine for development work or data-heavy creative arts work. But if you're using a modern FPGA system like the Commodore 64 Ultimate or Vice, the emulator, on a Mac or PC, the picture is very different. This may change, but at the time of recording, JiffyDOS is still commercially available today from Retro Innovations, run by licensed retailer Jim Brain, both in physical chip form and as downloadable ROM files. For emulator users, installation and configuration after purchasing a quick download is very straightforward. If you run a C64 emulator or FPGA-based system at reasonably accurate original C64 speed, rather than some sort of Warp 13 speed, the disk drive speed gain from JiffyDOS will be immediately noticeable, just as it is on original period hardware. The Commodore DOS Wedge is a significant chapter in computing history. Commodore identified the problem, built a solution, and shipped it with the disk drive from day one. It was just buried on a demo disk rather than built directly into the machine. It arguably took third parties to finish the job properly. If you're any kind of C64 user with original hardware, FPGA or emulator, it doesn't matter, and you're not using some form of DOS Wedge, I genuinely encourage you to look into it, do your own research, make up your own mind. A Wedge offers many great features, but the $@ shortcut alone is probably worth it for me. Find a Wedge, gain the edge. Which Commodore DOS Wedge solution do you use? How is it most helpful to you in your Commodore adventures? Are there fast loaders, possibly cartridge-based, or other Wedge implementations I haven't mentioned today that you swear by to save you time and keep your basic programs safe? Please let us know in the comments. We always love to hear what our happy retro tech community friends are running on their own super fun systems. Remember, friends, Retro Rottie needs you. Whether you liked this video lots or not so much, it only takes a moment to let us know and help us improve what we can offer little by little, week by week. Until next time, friends, please stay well. Best of luck with all your 8-bit adventures. Long live Retrotech, and it's a goodbye from me.